Hey friend, it's So from So's Real Thoughts, and I'm coming at you with a Mr. Robot Season 3, Episode 3 recap and review. If you did not know what happened last week, you might want to check out that video. I'll link it up below. What can I say about this one? Before I get started, if you are new to my channel, please be sure to subscribe, give me a like, and yeah, let's get into it. So this episode 3 is called Legacy. Basically, it's a Tyrell episode. We get to see what he's been doing and what he's been up to since the E Corp hack all the way to what's going on right now. So we go back in time, way back to right after him and Elliot accomplished the E Corp hack. They're in the arcade together. You remember that scene where Elliot goes to the popcorn machine and he takes something out. And then in this episode, it shows that he takes out a gun, points it at Tyrell, shoots him, and then the gun's jammed. And Tyrell's like, oh my god, this is a sign. This is a sign we need to work together. At this point, Elliot is already Mr. Robot, and he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? He eventually convinces him that he's a necessary asset to the team, especially because at this point, Mr. Robot has no idea about why this guy is here and why he even needs his help. And in the meantime, Tyrell's like, oh my god, we are playing God. We need to do this. And you told me to look beyond and look above and all this other stuff. And so at this point, we are introduced to Irving, who is played by Bobby Cannavale. He showed up in episode 1, and we're like, who the fuck is this guy? And this episode, it actually explains that he catches Elliot and Tyrell in the action, in the thick of it all, right after the hack, and he tells him at gunpoint, both of them, says, all right, Tyrell, you're coming with us. Elliot, take Tyrell's car, park it in that parking lot. Remember that scene? Yeah. And so they have nothing else but to go with this guy and trust him. And at this point, Elliot gets arrested for hacking that other guy, Krista's boyfriend, and stealing his dog. He goes to jail for 8 months. And then Tyrell, to Irving's orders, is put in this log cabin far, far away where he needs to be isolated because sooner or later he's bound to become the most deadliest and most wanted man in U.S. history since Bin Laden. We see White Rose in his beautiful house, which is oceanfront, and it's just like so vast, so beautiful. It's like the ultimate paradise. Some guy comes and sees him, and White Rose is like, yo, I need you to handle the hack. I need you to shift the narrative. So F Society is based out in Iran, and he's also telling him that he might want him to endorse a candidate. I'm getting this right, where White Rose tells this guy, he's like, I need you to endorse this guy or really push for him. And this guy on television, it's Donald Trump giving his speech about Make America Great Again. And the journalist or whoever this guy is like, are you fucking kidding me? He's a fucking idiot. And White Rose is like, well, he's a puppet and we can control him and we can make it work. And it's like, oh my god, White Rose is so powerful in so many ways. I mean, in reality, I know White Rose is fictional, but just to think that the way they planted this, knowing the outcome, also positions White Rose to be an extremely powerful person that has her hands in every little facet of the government and everything else. While Elliot is in jail, Tyrell is getting started on phase 2, which is called Red Wheelbarrow. Apparently, that's what Irving is telling him that's what Elliot is calling it. This random guy, this frumpy-looking guy, he's actually the actor I recognize him the most and refer him to the clueless teacher who gets match made with the other teacher. He has a very iconic squeaky voice, and he's like, very, hello. That guy comes in, interrogates Tyrell to the point where he breaks. He asks him, have you ever cheated on your wife? Did you kill that woman that he killed? Do you love your wife? Will you be loyal to me? And he asks these like 4 questions over and over again with the juxtaposition of the kettle going off with the steam and everything. So it heightens the mood by like 1,000%. And obviously Tyrell cracks and he says, yes, I killed that woman. Yes, I love my wife. Yes, I've cheated on her. No, I will not be loyal to you. So that old man gestures to this Chinese guy, and that's it. He shakes his head no. And I think at that point he's probably gonna get killed or something. But Tyrell says, "But I will always be loyal to Elliot." And they're like, "All right, you're good." And so at that point, he is stuck in this cabin where he's chopping away at wood to release stress, at the same time hacking away, getting started on phase 2, and then Irving's trying to get close to him by telling him like a phony story about his son. Tyrell is looking at a webcam of his baby boy while reading all the tabloids about how his wife is filing for divorce, and all this pent up energy kind of escalates, and he needs to leave the cabin. He runs away. Obviously, some local sheriff catches him, and he's like so desperate to get out of his handcuffs. He's like trying to break his thumb. Turns out the sheriff was like, I'm going to turn you over to the FBI, and the FBI comes, and you don't see them. Obviously, you know what's going to happen. And then the guy gets shot in the head, and Tyrell's like trying to run for his life, but he can't open the cop car. Turns out it's Dom's boss. Dom's boss is yelling at Irving. He's like, how could you be so fucking stupid? You almost, you're putting me in a tough spot. Get your shit together, blah, blah. And you don't respect me. And you can see just the fact that Dom's boss is in this as well. It's like, God, White Rose is really in control of everybody. And he basically... What are the police for? They're all working for White Rose in the end anyways. Right before this, Darlene and Cisco meet. They're having a little chat. I was like, can't we just like be a regular couple? Blah, blah, blah. And Cisco's like, yeah, hopefully maybe soon after this we can. Actually, Darlene said that. Said after this, things will slow down and we can try to become a regular couple. And you see Cisco go into the car, and in that car is Irving. It's like, God damn it, this Irving guy is everywhere. Not only is it Tyrell's episode, it's Irving's episode. And Irving tells Cisco, you should watch out for your own ass, because when shit hits the fan, Darlene is safe, but you're not, and you should not care about her. Which is like, come on, Irving, like, are you serious? I don't know. He's very shady. He's a very shady guy. Irving goes to meet Joey Badass, which I was like so happy to see Joey Badass again. Joey Badass in jail, and tells him this is right after Joey Badass's character helped save Elliot from the neo-Nazis, and Elliot is gonna get out. Yay! They move Tyrell to the city in a hotel, a really fancy hotel where he kind of cleans himself up, and he's like, I must wear my suit. I must be like dressed for Elliot and, looking my best. Tyrell is taken to the warehouse, and he's like, this is perfect. We jump to right after he shoots Elliot, and Elliot is getting operated. Angela is there, and Tyrell is in hysterics, obviously, because, he just shot, like, basically the love of his life, and... He's like, how can he not remember me? And blah, blah, blah. And Angela's like, I think I should tell you something. As you know, he does act like 2 different people. The next scene is Angela talking to Elliot. And Elliot slowly looking back at Tyrell, who is like all the way in the back in the dark. And it flashes to Mr. Robot's face. So basically, when he wakes up, it's Mr. Robot looking back at Tyrell, and then the episode is over. I feel like I did a pretty good job in speeding that recap up. If I missed anything, let me know down below, but I feel like I got the gist of this whole episode. So this segment is called my 3 favorite scenes / parts. Usually I do 3. I might just do 2 because why not? I don't have to limit to 3. So the first one is the opening credit scene. I loved it because we are looking bird's eye view, tracking a car through the hills, and at the same time, we have the scrolling of the opening credits, but instead of it going from up to down, it's going from down to up, which is amazing. That tracking shot is very reminiscent of The Shining's opening sequence, and then just it going the other way is very disorientating, and it's just, I love it how it really sets the mood, and it's such a horror film reference that I really liked, and it kind of, it was so, things bound to happen. My other favorite scene was the interrogation scene. You get to see Tyrell really sweating. He's like sweating bullets at this point, and they're trying to crack him down, and you get to see his true self. Everything he's been putting up has been shut down, and at this point, you get to see what kind of person he is, especially with him saying, "But I will never betray Elliot," which is like, oh my god. Also, if I had to pick another scene that is considered my favorite, I have to always pick the scene where Angela is in. When Angela showed up, I was so happy. I love seeing her. She's such a fascinating character, especially because she is the closest person to Elliot, and at the same time, who the fuck are you? And so it's just, she's so fascinating. So I'm sure everyone is thinking, did we really need to spend this whole entire episode on Tyrell? I mean, I didn't mind, considering that I really wanted to know where he was the entire time. If I watched this episode right after season 2, knowing that Elliot was actually in jail, and then seeing Tyrell go through all this, it is kind of disorientating, because from this episode, it basically shows him with Elliot in the arcade. They accomplished this, and then fast forward to him seeing Elliot, and he's so confused. But in my perspective, it seems like they didn't spend that much time together, so it was, even in Mr. Robot's perspective, he's like, this guy again? You know, I feel like in Tyrell's head, he played a bigger part and has such a bigger connection to Elliot than Elliot does to Tyrell. Especially because Elliot, for one, has no idea at this point, after he's shot, who the fuck, like, he thinks Tyrell is part of his imagination, or right after he got out of jail, he's like, you're not real, you know, you're not real, you're not real. And Mr. Robot is probably like, we have work to do, and I'm surprised you are here, but we have work to do. Even though it was focused on Tyrell this entire episode, I didn't mind so much because I was so curious. I did want them to branch out a little bit more, and instead of staying with Tyrell the entire time, I want to know different things, like if that's the first time he saw Angela, I guess in this episode, was that the only thing he did? He just stayed in that cabin. He had no interactions with anybody else, not even White Rose or anything. He's basically kept in till this point. So I guess it's understandable, but I did want to see his interaction with other people, just a little bit, just because it felt like, oh my god, is this it? This is all he's doing this entire possible 8 months? I know Elliot got out earlier, but it's like, give us a little more. This was also an episode where we get to know more about Irving and how extensive his network is, from knowing Cisco to White Rose to Dom's boss, and him as a person who's in the FBI but also working for White Rose, and also White Rose endorsing Donald Trump is what the fuck, but we'll get to that later. Oh my god. I'm interested to see how this goes and what they're gonna do, because if you know what's happening in the world right now, it's like, how can we root for you, White Rose? How? Hopefully there's a bigger part of this where he's controlling Donald Trump, so the media focuses on one thing while White Rose is doing something else in the background. I mean, that's all I can hope. So overall, this episode was pretty solid, because as much as Tyrell is kind of a bastard, because he's kind of a psycho. The man is a little psychotic and a murderer, but you do see deeper layers to him, how he feels for his wife, how he actually gets jealous. That was kind of a shocker because they have a pretty open relationship. I'm glad that he's keeping an eye on his son. I'm not sure what's going to happen when he finds out what happened to Joanna, but we shall see. And I guess this episode really painted a deeper and wider portrait of Tyrell instead of what we really knew about him before season 2, because we didn't really know too much about him. So it's kind of like seeing a whole episode about a side character you weren't really sure you cared about, but at the same time, I'm glad I saw it. I'm glad I got to know more about his story. His dedication to Elliot is really beautiful. I love it so much. Oh my god. I do love it so much. His dedication, his loyalty, his passion. I am hoping he ends up dying for Elliot. That's what I really want. The sacrifice. If he wants to play God and be God, he can die for Elliot. That's what I hope will happen. Next episode, I really want to refocus back on Elliot, back on Angela, back on Darlene, and what the fuck is going on at this point. Really, really good episode. Just a general recap, review on Tyrell, which it has been long awaited, considering that all of season 2, I thought Tyrell was Elliot. Like, honestly, I was just like, ooh, I don't know. Even in season 2, when they met in the cab, I think that was one of the scenes, I did not believe it. Like, I just thought it was all in his head. And it's kind of frightening in a way to see Tyrell in that scene looking down in that cab. He sees Elliot, goes in the cab with Elliot, and he's like, oh my god, it's me. We gotta be more careful now. Like they didn't spend all this time apart. Meanwhile, knowing everything that happened in season 2, you're like, fuck. Elliot is so fucked up in the head at this point. What the fuck? And for him to go from that point to straight to the warehouse, and then from the warehouse to getting shot, it's like, oh my god, this poor kid. Understandably, he is totally fucked in the head. It'd be nice if... I mean, self-care is not going to happen in this series, not just yet, but I'm interested to see more. Great to see that Tyrell is semi-human and has feelings and is emotional in certain ways, especially when it comes to Elliot. So, huzzah! Other than that, pretty decent episode. Nothing really more to say. I did love that opening credit scene. Whew, that was great. Of course, someone had to die, another casualty, in the expense of, this whole operation. And yeah, I really like seeing Tyrell really shook it up. Especially him being the one that loves Elliot the most, and he's the one that has to shoot him. Which, if you also remember that scene where he has the gun at Elliot, and then Mr. Robot's on the side that says, like, do it or something, and he's, like, egging him on. I would love to see that scene the way it actually played out. Especially because Tyrell was like, you told us if anybody got in between this operation, even you. Anyways, so many Fight Club references, but I love it. Anyways, let me know what you thought of this episode. If you have questions, things you want to discuss. Felt like a pretty easy episode. Anyways, thank you, friends, so much, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.